Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on our podcast who's running for an exciting office. His name is Kaiser Leib, and he's with the Libertarian Party, and he's running for governor of Montana. So welcome to the podcast, Kaiser.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Kaiser, if we could get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Yeah, I spent most of my life as a software engineer. I've also gotten into stand-up comedy recently, and I had started and then closed a tech company back in December. So for the intervening period, I've just been doing stand-up comedy. A friend of mine pointed out that nobody had filed to run as a Libertarian for governor of Montana, and I thought that I was probably the right person to do that.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So is your comedy political, or are you on different topics when you're doing the comedy?
I'm almost entirely non-political. I do have some jokes where I'll mention some politicians, but it's not focused on politics. You know, at one point I've got a joke about how Barack Obama sounds like an airplane pilot, you know. But it's not, it doesn't have a lot to do with criticisms of parties or policies.
Okay. Interesting. So for the race for governor, can you please tell us, first of all, how you see Montana as, like, it's one of our states, so a lot of people are familiar with it in a vague sense, yet how do you see Montana right now? What's the direction of Montana, and what is your prescription for making Montana better?
So Montana is kind of unique among all other states because we're, the western kind of cowboy rough and tumble state, which would lead you to kind of assume that we're going to be this deep red pocket of conservatism.
Sure.
But we also had copper mining, right? And so copper mining up until the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, and these copper mining operations brought with them unions, right? So the copper barons were very, very powerful up until the first parts of the 20th century. And so our original constitution was relatively friendly to big businesses, right? And around the 70s, 1972, the people kind of got upset with this, and they said, okay, we're going to draft another constitution. The state's constitution is actually remarkably progressive. And so you do have that Western rough and tumble cowboy thing going on, but you also have this very interesting case where people are motivated to care about one another in a way that you didn't see in other states for a long time. And so we were remarkably bipartisan, right? There's not necessarily a very strong third-party ecosystem here, but we would end up sending Democrats to Washington and electing Republicans locally, things like that. The governorship has shifted back and forth during my lifetime a couple of times. And so you saw sort of this frustrated cooperation, right? With the increased polarization that we've seen in the 21st century, that's been harder and harder to achieve, right? And so you have people who end up just not wanting to talk to each other because there's such strong adherence of one party or another. And then in the past couple of years specifically, you've seen this massive in-migration from other states, right? You see people who are frustrated living in California. You're down in Orange County and all of your neighbors are conservative, but your state-level legislature is extremely progressive. And so you say, no, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to move to where people think the same thing that I think. And so you pick on the map and you pick Montana. And so we end up with this increased polarity, with this increased conservatism among the voting population, right? And so people come out here because they want to change the state to look like them. They come here from out of state and they want to change it to look like them. And so far they've actually been pretty successful in electoral politics. And so we've got the legislature and the governorship both held by Republicans who are not my version of Republicans anyway. They're remarkably religiously conservative, right? And they're remarkably friendly. They talk about being business friendly, but what this means is that they're friendly to out of state big business, right? And so instead of lifting the restrictions in such a way that it allows people from Montana to do entrepreneurship, what they do is they offer handouts to out-of-state businesses to come in here, make a bunch of money, and then the taxpayers continue to be left with the burden of actually funding the state's operations. That's been really frustrating to see. And so my frustration with the sitting governor's office is pretty huge. And he doesn't even do that much for the more libertarian values that I actually care about, because he's so focused on what he thinks his version of Christianity is, and then ought to apply to everybody else. So the Democrat candidate is he was virtual unknown until pretty recently, and then he wrote a book about how he is opposed to the gun industry, right? So this is another thing that Montana has been very good about historically, is that we've got a lot of freedoms. We respect the Second Amendment very effectively, and so the Democrats are offering us for governor somebody who says, yeah, but the Second Amendment is for hunting, right? It's like you watched the movie A River Runs Through It and came out here to dress up as Brad Pitt and go deer hunting and fishing. And so he casts himself as being pro-gun, but what he actually means is that he's an establishment Democrat from like the 90s and 2000s, where we should ban all of the guns that we find distasteful. Right. And that doesn't really jive with me. That doesn't, especially when you get somebody coming in here from out of state, right? He was born in Kansas and moved here in his adulthood. You've still got people who are saying, oh, I'm going to change things. I'm going to make Montana look the way that I, an out-of-stater, want them to look. I'm from here. I was born here, right? And it doesn't look like, it didn't used to look anyway, like anything that you see in any other states. We're not polarized in that way. And so without understanding that all the way, coming in here and making changes is inappropriate. So I'm here to take us back. I'm here to take us back to the way that we used to be. I'm here to take us back to a place of cooperation and understanding. And I think part of that is going to involve shrinking the government.
Sure. Excellent. So you mentioned that you support the Second Amendment. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
Okay, so would you say that you're a constitutionalist in general?
So the important thing about the Constitution, both the U.S. Constitution and the Montana State Constitution, as somebody who's involved in government, you derive your authority from that governing document, right? And that document says these are the things that the government is not allowed to do. It's not so much a list of the things that human beings have to do. It's a list of things that the government can't do to the population, to the people, right? Sure. So there are procedural issues with how we amend the Constitution, how the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution. You know, the 10th Amendment basically goes away because there's a Commerce Clause, and so we're regarding this amendment as being less important than a sentence about regulating interstate commerce, because the government wants to step in and intervene. The federal government wants to intervene in state matters. So that's frustrating. At the same time, that's where we get that authority. That's where the government derives that power, is from that agreement. And if you're going to say, oh, I'm just going to violate the terms of this agreement, I'm going to change things, there are processes by which you can do that. You can take and you can say, you can offer an amendment, right? You can draft an amendment, and if the amendment passes, then you can change the Constitution that way. You can't just ignore the parts that you don't like, right? And so when somebody says they respect the Constitution, it almost always means they respect what their version of the Constitution says, right? It tends to be a lot of people who don't necessarily favor religious liberty, for people who disagree with them, for instance. Right? Saying that, you know, the Constitution is about Christianity. Well, you might want to look at Thomas Jefferson's version of Christianity. It might not rhyme with yours.
Exactly.
Right?
Good point.
In Montana specifically, we've got a provision in the Constitution that says that the state and each person will promote a clean and healthful environment, right? I tend to think that is not the responsibility of the government. I don't like the fact that the Constitution says that the people will have to do something, because I think the Constitution is supposed to be a set of limitations and obligations on the government. But it's in the Constitution. You have to respect that part, regardless of whether you like it or not. You can't just throw it away. The sitting administration has tried to do that. Right? They issued an order in the last legislative session. They basically said the DEQ can no longer consider carbon emissions. Right? That's completely wrong. That's completely wrong because it contravenes that provision of the Constitution, and you have to follow that provision of the Constitution if you're going to be a governor or a legislator.
Okay. Interesting. Earlier you mentioned the copper mines and how they brought in unions. So I'm curious about what you think of unions. From what I understand, libertarians have an interesting perspective on unions. On one hand, it seems they support unions based on freedom of association, yet they oppose things like closed shops. So would you say that would summarize your view about unions, or how do you feel about unions based on your libertarian principles?
Well, I think the freedom of association thing kind of trumps just about anything else. If a business agrees with the union that they're only going to hire union members, you end up in this closed shop situation. I think that's probably usually wrong for most businesses. But I don't think that the government is the thing that should come in and prevent that. I think that if we don't like that, we should go start another business where there is no union, right? There's a difference between public sector and private sector unions. I would rather see public employees pursue recourse with the voters rather than relying on a union to negotiate on their behalf. The interesting thing is that as we've moved into the 21st century and as we've enjoyed kind of the benefits that that collective bargaining created for us with the 40-hour work week, things like that, we've kind of had private sector unions languish, but public sector unions remain strong. This is really weird to me because I would think that, in the public sector, because you have the recourse of the voters, you'd be able to get things done other ways, right? And with the private sector, you would still want that collective bargaining, and that doesn't seem to be what we see. It's very weird.
Good point. Good point. Interesting perspective. Sounds good. So, what other issues are on the plate for Montana for this governor's race, and how are you advocating for them or against them?
Well, I mean, probably the thing that most people are the most upset about is the increase in property taxes for homeowners specifically. The current administration has seriously shifted the tax burden away from businesses, from infrastructure, and over to homeowners, right? They kind of tried to mask this because home values have risen so much. In the past, when home values rise, counties reduce that mill rate. So your house is now worth twice as much from a taxable perspective, but you pay a little more than half as much taxes, right? Taxes did tend to go up because that's the nature of government. But what the sitting administration did was basically just say, okay, all of the increase is going to be taxed, and the counties, you have to collect, these full 95 mills. And so they took and they used that to reduce the tax rate on big businesses and on infrastructure. In a perfect world, we wouldn't see property taxes at all. We wouldn't see taxes at all. But that sort of increase, specifically on homeowners, prevents us from doing the entrepreneurial things that I care about. It prevents us from having enough money to go about our day-to-day lives. And so I think that the first place to focus is on reducing property taxes for homeowners.
Okay, sounds good.
That necessarily carries with it shrinking other parts of the state budget, right? I think that we can bring some efficiency to state government just by reducing staffing levels, which is a little bit inconvenient for the people who have the jobs. But that's the nature of the beast. If you're going to have it, you have to pay for it. And I would prefer that we pay fewer taxes.
Oh, sure. Okay. So how are you getting the word out in your area? What is your strategy for campaigning?
My strategy right now is fairly grassroots. There's a lot of shaking of hands. As we've discussed, I am a stand-up comedian. So, the 3 or 4 weekends a month that I have a show, right, we talk about the fact that, hey, Kaiser is running for governor. I've had a couple of fundraising events, and I've spoken to the state Libertarian Party or various county Libertarian parties a couple of times. Okay. And then a lot of Twitter memes. Right? Post memes on Twitter, post memes on Instagram. That works about as well as you might expect. My opponents are raising record numbers of dollars for this race. That's because the current administration, the governor is a literal billionaire, so he can self-fund his campaign. The Democrat challenger is attracting a lot of out-of-state money because eyes are on Montana because of our Senate race. And so, I'm looking at these multiple millions of dollars in war chests that these other two have raised, and I'm looking at my bank account that has $1,100 in it.
So it's hard to compete. In other words,
the message really resonates with people, but the sort of people with whom it resonates are not people who say, yeah, what I want to do is give a bunch of money to a political campaign. Right? People think, it's great that we have, we ought to have more libertarianism, right? We ought to have smaller government, more freedom. But then the tendency is always to say, but if I don't, if I support this guy, if I don't support this other guy, bad things might happen, right?
Yeah.
And you don't tend to see a lot of willing donations from people who think the government shouldn't exist anyway, right?
There you go. Good point. So how about ballot access? So it sounds like everything is okay with that. Is that correct? What hurdles did you have to go to get on the ballot?
Well, so for the Libertarian Party in Montana, right now we maintain our ballot access by achieving a certain threshold of votes in statewide races. So as long as in a statewide race we achieve, I think it's 5% of the difference between the two highest vote counts, right, for the governor's race, then we maintain ballot access, and we automatically get on the ballot for any of the races for which we file. Some other third parties haven't managed to maintain that ballot access, and during the last legislative session, there was actually a pretty serious effort to deny us ballot access, and specifically to say, for this Senate election, you're not going to have any libertarians. You're just going to have the two candidates, the two highest polling candidates on the ballot. This is, frankly, it's wrong because it disenfranchises everybody. I don't have a lot in common with the Green Party, but I think that the Green Party ought to be on the ballot. I think the Libertarians ought to be on the ballot. So those challenges will arise in the future, but for this election cycle, I'm on the ballot. I'm what they call the presumptive nominee because if there's nobody else running in the primary, and so I'll be on the ballot come November.
Okay. So when is it official? When is the primary done?
Again, it's irrelevant for my race. I want to say that the primary for the other parties happens in June.
Okay. So all right. Sounds good. That's good that you're on the ballot and you don't have to get all those signatures.
Yeah, that's going to be a real challenge going forward if we end up in a state where we actually have to collect those signatures. That being said, that's one of the things that I'm going to be very valuable for. Right, a lot of people are willing to say yes, this person should be on the ballot, even if they're not willing to vote for you. Right, and so all those people who come to my comedy shows and say, hey, it's great that you're running, but I'm not going to vote for you, they might be willing to help out with the signatures for the ballot access.
Good point. That's a good perspective. So, Kaiser, how can our audience support your campaign?
The biggest way, obviously, is financial. If you go to kaiserformontana.us, that's all the words, KAISERFORMONTANA.us. I've got a donation form up. You can buy the bumper stickers. The bumper stickers are real funny. And in the next couple of weeks here, I'll have yard signs. Although if you're not in Montana, probably the yard signs are not the best use of your time and money.
Oh, sure. Okay. So the best way to help is to donate through your website for most people.
Yes. I think that's probably the best way to go.
All right. Excellent. Kaiser, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign.
Hey, yeah. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye now.